In 2017, I got my first book deal. A publisher in New York somehow agreed to let me write and draw a graphic memoir about what it was like to be the daughter of immigrants with a Filipino Catholic mom and an Egyptian Muslim dad. I called the book I Was Their American Dream. The publisher gave me a contract in advance, a whole team of editors, and I should have been so excited, right? Inside, I was freaking out because the moment that I signed the contract, it dawned on me. Even though I was a writer, even though I was a journalist, I did not actually know how to turn my life into a book. And that's because I didn't know my story. I was 31 years old at the time, and I knew my life in chapters and fragments, but I never sat down to think about why I am the way I am or how I got to be me. This book, however, presented an opportunity for me to face my past with honesty, to gain more clarity, more understanding, more perspective. And in the process, something incredible happened. The personal narrative that I'd always carried for myself completely transformed for the better. That's what this talk is about today. Not just that there may be a better, richer version of your life story out there if you take the time to find it. Here's why that matters. The story that you tell about yourself affects how you feel about yourself. This is well documented in a field called narrative psychology. People who are able to tell a story about their lives in a coherent narrative feel like their lives have more meaning, direction, and purpose. This is from a study in 2014 published in the Journal of Personality. And people who are able to tell a story about themselves where they're showing that they're overcoming obstacles have better mental health than those who feel like life is just happening to them. And that's according to research by the scholar Dan McAdams, who's a pioneer in this field. In other words, it's in your best interest to have a strong and positive personal narrative. And in a world where so many things bring us down, social media making us feel like we're not enough, the daily grind of everyday life, the story that you tell about yourself may be one of the most powerful tools that you have to boost your self-esteem, to foster personal growth. And for me, that happened, and there are many ways to gain a deeper understanding of your life story, right? But for me, the most powerful revelations happened not because I had a writing breakthrough, not because I went to therapy, but because for the very first time, I sat down and I interviewed my family about their stories. And their answers to my questions actually reshaped how I saw my story. Again, that's what this talk is about today. Not just how your past shapes you, but realizing that you can go back and change the very narrative that you've always believed about yourself. And when you do, your story may shift in ways that you never expected. So what's the story that I used to tell about myself? It's kind of a sad one. I was a lonely child. My parents divorced when I was 5. My mom worked a lot. My dad lived on another continent. And we didn't have a lot of money. And so I quickly put together as a young person that the best way out of my situation would be to get good grades, go to a good university, and then get a good job. Now, that wasn't enough for me to fill the pages of my 160-page memoir. So that's why I got the idea to interview my family, right? I thought they would have more stories and more insights. And you might think that's a really obvious thing to do. It's actually not. People don't talk to their family members about their pasts. A majority of Americans, about 60%, don't even know what their parents' lives were like before they were born. This is according to a 2023 survey published by Ancestry. The top reasons why: they didn't think their mom would want to share, and they didn't think to ask. And that was exactly my situation. Even though I was a journalist, which is really embarrassing to admit, that's my literal job, to ask questions, so it's very odd. Talking to my parents, it was a little awkward for me. I didn't really know how to start the conversation. But I also knew, as a journalist, that sometimes the best place to start is just from the beginning, just with the basics. And so I asked my parents about their immigrant journey. Why did you move here? What year did you move here? And the most amazing thing happened. The more answers they gave, the deeper the questions became. What did you expect for yourself when you came here? What did you expect for me? My parents told me about things that I'd never heard of before. My dad had been dreaming and scheming of coming to the US since he was a young man, and I think he was disappointed by the outcome. His career in the hotel business fizzled out, and so did his 2 marriages. And after 17 years of living in the US, he decided to move back to the Middle East, where he restarted his own life. My mom, on the other hand, didn't want to leave the Philippines, but her parents and her family members had decided to emigrate for political and economic reasons, and if she stayed, she'd get left behind. Life in America was very hard for my mom. She was a single working mom who worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week. She lifted heavy bags at the airport, she filed paperwork at my uncle's office, and she hustled jewelry on the side. Hearing my parents' stories, something just clicked for me. I wasn't driven to do well because I wanted to have a good job. I was driven to do well to ensure that the sacrifices that my parents made in America were worth it for them. And I did that by putting immense pressure on myself to do the things that my parents were not able to do. Create financial stability, build a career where I didn't have to work nonstop, and forging a strong and lasting marriage. When I realized that, it hit me. My parents' dreams and my dreams, they were connected. They were intertwined. So much of what I was doing in my life, I was doing for them. And you might say, like, maybe I did that out of obligation, but I didn't see it that way. It gave me a greater sense of fulfillment, knowing that my ambition had an even grander purpose than I'd ever imagined. And it moved me to realize that I had grown up into the kind of person who had radical empathy for their parents. So the lesson is this: knowing your family's life story helps you understand the forces that shape you, your culture, your beliefs, your values, your identity. This is according to research by the anthropologist Elizabeth Keating, who studies how family stories are shared across generations. That may not be a reality for some of you. Maybe you're estranged from your family, maybe family members have passed away, maybe their memories have faded. But if you do have the opportunity to talk to your family members, please do. If you don't know where to start, do what I did. Start with the basic stuff and trust that it will lead to deeper questions. Or just ask them the stuff that you always wanted to know but never thought to ask. Questions like, Mom, why did you really divorce Dad? Dad, why did you really move to the Middle East? The anthropologist Elizabeth Keating, if you need more help, she's got a book called The Essential Questions, where she's got questions designed to get your family members talking about the past in a way they never have before. What is your strongest childhood memory? And how has your identity changed over time? Keep asking, keep listening, keep reflecting. Maybe it'll happen in an instant, maybe it'll take years, but you will start to see the connection between your family's stories and your story, and that will help you understand your life in a more meaningful way. So, when you talk to your family members, you are going to hear different versions of your memories. That should not negate your truth, but I want you to stay open to these new takes on the past because you just might learn something from them. As I mentioned, my mom worked a lot and my dad lived in another country. He lived in Egypt. So I spent a lot of time at my aunt and uncle's house. There, I often felt like an interloper. Here I was again, getting dropped off by my mom, eating my family's food, messing up their plans, messing up their routine. But when I talked to my aunt, she said she didn't remember it that way. She loved having me around. She and my uncle could see what was happening in my situation with my parents, so they did everything they could to include me in their lives. And when she said that, I had this moment like in the movies where the sun comes out and the music swells and the main character realizes that the answer was there all along, and there's this montage of all the obvious signs that they missed. If my aunt and uncle were buying a dress for my cousin Felicia, they would buy me the same thing in my size. If they were going to Disneyland or to Palm Springs for the weekend, I was coming too. At mealtimes, there was always a place for me at the table. My aunt and uncle literally treated me like their own daughter, but I was so stuck, feeling sorry for myself, that I didn't even bother to notice. Knowing what I know now, there's no way that I can go back to that old, sad version of my life story. Because I literally went from feeling like a lonely child to knowing I was a loved child. Can you imagine the power of that? Feeling lonely to knowing I was loved. I literally had a village of people surrounding me who loved and supported me. And this version of my life story is so much better than the one that I was carrying before. So, if you feel like you are stuck in a sad story, you have the power to challenge that. When you talk to your family members, pay special attention to gaining new perspectives on the parts of your past that feel a little painful to you, that you might be holding on to. As a journalist, I've learned that you just have to ask the hard questions and be bold if you want to get to the truth of things. And when you hear these new perspectives, you may not understand them at first, you may not accept them. That's okay. When that happens, sit with it, process it. Know that it's possible for two opposing viewpoints to exist at once. And if it's still not making sense to you, try writing about it. As a writer, I've learned over and over the power of sitting down and putting pen to paper, because it really forces you to think about what you are trying to say. And it's there where I believe that you will start to make the connections of seeing all of those different perspectives, synthesizing them, and seeing your life in a new light. Interviewing your family is not going to be easy. I struggled. There were cultural barriers. Arabs are a deeply private people. In Arab culture, you don't air your dirty laundry to your close friends or even your extended family members. It's seen as bringing shame to your house, and it shows that you can't handle your family's business. So with that in mind, it was hard to get my dad to open up about any shortcomings or personal failings. But he could see what I was earnestly trying to do. He could see that I was trying to learn his book, his true story. And so he overcame his fears for my sake, for the book. Sometimes the past is too hard to talk about because it's painful, traumatic, shameful. When I asked my mom what it was like to be a single working mom, she clammed up, because whatever she was going to tell me was going to go into a book too, right? My mom grew up in an upper middle class family in Manila. Her parents were intellectuals. She went to a prestigious university. Her life was not supposed to be this hard. And she didn't want her friends back in the Philippines to know that. For the book, she told me, "Please don't make me look poor." I could tell that this interview was giving her a lot of anxiety, so I leveled with her. I told her, "I can't do this book without your true story in it. I need you. I can't do this project without you." I could also tell that maybe this might have been one of the first times that she was confronting this part of her own story. And so I gave her time to think about how she wanted to proceed. And eventually she agreed that yes, I could write about her and interview her. After the book was published, she told me that her friends at work read the book and they came up to her and told her how much they loved her immigrant story and how much they could relate. And now for my mom, her struggle is a point of pride. My parents opening up to me about some of the most painful and difficult moments of their past is probably one of the most loving and trusting things they've done for me as an adult. And what shocked me is that they were more willing to go there than I originally thought. And that's the takeaway here. Your family, they're going to be more willing to talk to you than you think. Yes, there's going to be barriers. Don't let that stop you. Please handle these conversations with love and care. If it feels like a family member just doesn't want to answer a question or it seems uncomfortable when you're talking to them, let it go. Come back to it another time. Give them context about why you're doing this interview in the first place, whether it's for a book, a family heirloom project, or just because you're curious. That will help them decide how much they want to open up to you. And know what your boundaries are. As a writer and artist, I've always said that my family means more to me than my art. So I never want to do anything to jeopardize my relationships with them. So know what your boundary is, know what your line is, and that line is going to be different for everyone. I'm going to leave you today with one of my favorite moments from my interviews, and that was with my 97-year-old grandmother. I thought it would be fun to do the Proust questionnaire with her, which was a questionnaire designed by the French essayist Marcel Proust, designed to reveal a person's true nature. I asked her, which talent would you like to have in the world? She paused and she thought, to be a writer, like you. And in that moment, I felt it. Her dreams and my dreams, they were intertwined. Just as my family's stories had an impact on my story also had an impact on theirs. That's the power of a single conversation. It can shift the way that you see yourself. It can change the story that you've been holding on to for decades. Because your story, it's yours to understand, and it's yours to rewrite. So ask, listen, reflect. You don't need to wait for a crisis. You don't need to have a book deal. You just need to have one conversation on purpose with someone who shaped you. Do it now while you still can.